Prisoner was in the middle of his meal when he suddenly put his spoon on the floor. Half of the spoon was covered with shadows, and the prisoner thought for a moment. He kicked the spoon back into the light and then blocked it with his foot. At that moment, the guards came to collect the dishes and carelessly took away the food bowl without looking at it, not realizing that he had left the prisoner with an escape weapon. When the guards left, the man took the spoon handle and sanded it against the rough ground until the edge was sharp enough. He immediately shoved the spoon into the crack of the door panel, and as the spoon handle continued to scrape, the door panel was scraped down a strip of wood shavings. The man carefully cleaned up the chips, in order not to be detected by the guards. He blackened the paper and dipped it in water and shoved it into the doorway. After a few days of hard work, the whole board was thinned out. He felt a slight loosening of the board and tried to pry it off the door, but he didn't expect the spoon to break with a little force. One spoon wasn't strong enough and he had to find a way to get another one. The next day, when the guards weren't looking, he stole a spoon from outside the kitchen. This time he stuck both spoons into the cracks in the boards and pried, but instead of opening the door, he made a gap. The man quickly patched the piece of wood back together and blackened the joint with a pencil. He couldn't let the guards find out anything before he succeeded, and he knew he hadn't scraped deep enough. As long as he continued to scrape around the boards, it was only a matter of time before he succeeded. Sure enough, after a month of hard work, he finally pried open 3 boards. He was just about to try to get through when he heard the footsteps of prison guards in the corridor. He was so scared that he immediately put the boards back in place, but luckily the guards didn't notice. At night, he removed the boards and got out through the door. There were no guards in the building, but the man didn't dare go too far. He soon returned to his cell. The next day he went downstairs to watch the guards. In his head, he planned all the possibilities of escape and the unexpected situations he might encounter. At night again, he became more and more courageous after his previous experience. He climbed down the pipe to the skylight and climbed out to see the roof. But to get down from such a high roof, he had to get a rope long enough and strong enough to support his weight. But that didn't bother him at all. He lifted the bed sheets and removed the wire mesh used for support and pulled out the wires one by one, leaving only a few to support the bed sheets so that the guards wouldn't suspect anything. The rest were tied with strips of cloth and then braided into a strong rope. Everything was in order. The man was ready to find a chance to escape in a few days, but what he didn't expect was that his cellmate across the street couldn't bear the loneliness to take a step. He took advantage of the time to relax and rushed to the prison gate with his homemade rope. The prisoner spent 5 months planning his escape, but just before the operation, he suddenly received a death warrant. What's even harder for him to accept is that a cellmate has been added to his original cell. The escape plan was completely disrupted and the man was left in a state of shock. The execution is only a few days away, but he hasn't even finished making the escape rope yet, and there's another obstacle in front of him. The man even thought that the warden had arranged to spy on him, so he didn't dare to reveal his escape plan. But time is running out and he's running out of options. He can either get rid of the guy or convince him to escape with him. He tries to talk to him to find out why he's here. After a few exchanges, he's almost certain that he's a regular guy through and through, but he's still not sure he can convince him. If he knew about the escape plan and reported it to the guards, then all his months of hard work would be wasted. But looking at this innocent boy, the man couldn't kill him. After hesitating for a long time, he told him all about his plan. What he didn't expect was that the young man agreed without hesitation. With the young man's participation, they speeded up the braiding of the rope. Finally, the rope was ready for the escape before the execution. That night, the 2 men climbed out of the skylight through the pipes and onto the roof, carrying 2 hooks with them. They moved along the roof without making any noise. The smallest movement could kill them because of the small stones underfoot. They reached the edge of the roof and watched the only guard downstairs. The man was lost in thought. He realized that the guards were moving back and forth, but they wouldn't come to the corner, so he chose to descend from here. He hung a rope from the edge of the roof and landed on the ground. Once on the ground, he didn't rush forward but pressed himself against the corner and listened carefully. His heart raced as he heard the footsteps of the guards approaching. Just as the guards turned to leave, he rushed out and knocked them out. Without delay, he led the boy across the yard to the second high wall. Firstly, he carried him over his shoulder to the top of the wall, and then he climbed up with a rope. Beyond the wall was the outer gateway and the last line of defense. There are no guards here, but there is a guard on a bicycle. The man threw the hook onto the opposite wall and pulled it a few times to make sure it was hooked. Now all he had to do was climb up the rope and he would be free. But now the man hesitated. He was afraid the rope wouldn't hold his weight. He's worried that the hook will slip off the wall. And he's even more worried that the guards on patrol will catch him in the act. He ran through every possible contingency in his mind and grew more and more timid. Just then the prison bell rang 4 times, leaving the man little time. He decided to take his chances for freedom and grabbed the rope and hung upside down and climbed to the other side, while the rope and the hook were stronger than he thought. Thus the man and the boy climbed over the rope one after the other. The man was the first to jump off the prison wall, followed by the boy. They didn't expect it to go so smoothly, but they held on to their excitement and disappeared into the night.